Sinners is the latest film from director Ryan Coogler, who is also the sole writer on this film. This is actually his first original feature film. It was kind of crazy, but looking back on it, yeah, he's part of the MCU franchise, did the Rocky franchise, and then Fruitvale Station, that was based on true events. This is his first time where he's actually allowed to be as creative and kind of free as possible. This movie follows the Smokestack Twins, played by Michael B. Jordan in both roles. Without spoiling too much of what they've been doing, they arrive back to their hometown, centered in the Jim Crow South. They want to set up a juke joint with a lot of money that they have gotten from what they've been doing. They want to create it for their community. Unfortunately, though, during their opening night, some supernatural events start to take place, and vampires, baby. Let's fucking go! When the marketing for this started, I was really pumped for it. I thought that first trailer they released was really stellar. And I was really excited by the idea of Ryan Coogler doing a horror film. It didn't really click with me that it was his first original film, but I was thinking like, yeah, he hasn't really made a horror film. It's only been, Fruitvale Station, which it's horrifying what happens in that, what happened in real life, but it's not a, horror movie. And then, a drama with Creed, and then action with Black Panther, action sci-fi. So this kind of using a bit more of like a sci-fi element with the vampire stuff, but, using more of like a horror lens. I was really excited to see what he could do with him reteaming with Michael B. Jordan, who's been in, all of his movies, which is awesome. And especially with him reteaming with Ludwig Göransson as, composer for everything. And I just wanted to get the obvious out of the way when doing this video. Yeah, the horror stuff is pretty damn cool. The Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, I really love how they utilize him in this. You don't get like a big monologue scene where he's like, well, you see, when I was a young boy back in whatever, you know what I mean? There's like hints and shades of like backstory for him of like, how long this vampirism has been going on, especially with him specifically. And there's certain parallels that you can make that tie back to the movie's overall theme that I thought were really clever. And Jack O'Connell just embodies that kind of evil persona really well, but in a way where he's like, no, hey, we're all about equality. Like saying some nice things and trying to act like, this is all for the greater good, but having just this, gleeful evil underneath. I thought he did a really great job of that. So I wanted to get that out of the way first. Like the horror elements of this I thought were really working, as far as like doing a different kind of genre, Coogler, he handles that really well with his filmmaking. I mean, the cinematography, gosh, this movie looks fantastic. Autumn Durald Arkapaw is the DP of this film, and it looks amazing. Like they shot on film. I'm pretty sure. They had it ready for IMAX. All these different formats. It looks so sensational. And it also helps that like there's a lot of nighttime. Obviously, this movie takes place majority nighttime, and the lighting for it works really well. It sets up an atmosphere. I love the inside of like the juke joint. With the just orange like candle lights and lights and stuff like that. It just looks so great. They transport you into that really well. And if we can, talking about another technical aspect of this movie, like costume design, set design, everything feels very lived in. I think sometimes when movies, especially like bigger budget ones, try to take you to a different era of time or like a fantasy world, sometimes they run into the problem of like, it looks a little too much like a set, or the costumes look a little too perfect, like too ready to be worn just on that day of filmmaking, and it's not the most transportive. This, everything feels very lived in, there's beauty in the amount of detail and effort it took to construct this, but everything has like a sheen of like worn, torn, like dirty in some cases, and it's really transportive in that way. They do a really great job of actually making you feel like you're in this world. And it also helps that you have a cast that are totally game. They're committed to making you feel like you're not watching people phone it in. You're not just watching Michael B. Jordan. He really does a fantastic job embodying both of these twins and differentiating them as well, which can be, that can be difficult, especially, it's the same actor, but, they do like these little things, like they wear different colors, Smoke is a bit more like serious, and, he's often smoking. Stack, he's got those like identifiable like little gold teeth in his mouth whenever he smiles. He's the more fun one, so he smiles often, so you never really forget that. And even like the way he like carries his body, I feel like he's like a little more like tighter for Smoke, and then you really do feel a little more loose with Stack whenever he plays Stack. really great stuff. Maybe the best I've seen of Michael B. Jordan, outside of Fruitvale Station even, and Killmonger. Well, shit, it's kind of hard to tell. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to do that because, especially with his collaborations with Coogler, he's really fantastic. You know what I mean? So this is just another great one for him, both roles, doing really fantastically. And you have a supporting cast that are really fantastic. Delroy Lindo, who I still think should have gotten an Oscar nom at least for Defy Bloods back in 2020. He does a really great job of delivering a lot of comedy. He's really funny in this. He's like this drunkard who can play music really well. So he's got a lot of great lines, a lot of laugh out loud moments with the crowd came directly from him, I would say, for the most part. But there's also, they give him this one scene earlier on where he can just sell you on drama, like he's kind of discussing something that has happened, ties back to the world that we're set in at the moment. And he just sells it. He's so good at what he does. Wonmi Masaku, who's been popping up in a couple stuff. Obviously, people know her mostly from Loki, from Lovecraft Country, and Alice Darling. She's been really great, and she is really awesome in this. And she and Michael B. Jordan have really great chemistry with each other. Her and Smoke, that specific twin. And it's not an easy part to play. It's not just, I'm in love and you're in love. You know what I mean? There's been some problems with their relationship, some bumps in the road, but like this yearning to still like be with each other, even through the sadness of it all. It was really great stuff, seeing those two play off each other. And, I think Wonmi also, it delivers a great performance here. And Haley Steinfeld, both Michael B. Jordans have great chemistry with their respective, like, love interests. But Haley Steinfeld is also really great in this. And they talk about this in the press, but they, incorporate some, like, real life, like, ties to the culture. Like, one of Haley Steinfeld's family members was half black, and they incorporate that, like her character is like kind of directly kind of drawn from that. Like they kind of set it up where she's like a passing white woman, but someone who is still like tied to that community and culture due to like her upbringing. And I thought that was really cool to do. And yeah, she has really great chemistry with her respective Michael B. Jordan, as mentioned before. This movie, without showing like any like graphic nudity or like any, like it doesn't go like too risque or anything, but it also just makes you feel like the romance and the like sexual tension between the Michael B. Jordan characters and like Miles Catton and Jamie Lawson. And those two, Jamie Lawson has a really great like song where I was like, as soon as she started singing, I was like, this is fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I really loved that sequence in particular. And then you have Miles Catton, who a lot of people are going to be talking about. Obviously, this is his introductory role to film and acting. He's done a lot of music before, so that's why he sings so incredibly well. But yeah, he just embodies this character of Sammy just so well. It helps that the character, you like him immediately, like a young guy who has aspirations to be creative, to do music, to travel, and then you have his dad who's like, no, you can't do that, you gotta be a preacher, So you immediately are kind of drawn to him, and you partner him up with both Michael B. Jordans in an opening, like a quarter, like 30 minutes or so, where they just spend some time gathering the people they need for their juke joint. And so you see him interact, with these people and have great chemistry with them, show off his singing skills before the ultimate, big scene, which we'll talk about in a bit. He just really sells that. You're drawn to him immediately. He's got a great presence. You've got to give some props to the way Coogler was able to write that specific portion of the film, because I was watching it and I was like, any other filmmaker or any other studio probably would have found a way to be like, cut this, just jump it closer to the action, chop it down. And something, that I appreciate is that some people will find a way to find a really tight movie, keep the pace going as quickly as possible, that can be really commendable. But there is a part of me that also feels like sometimes, I feel like I'm missing stuff, I'm all for a movie being as long as it needs to be. I'm not someone who's like, make movies shorter, it's just however long the movie needs to be, I'm totally there, as long as it's paced well, as long as, the storytelling is great, as long as everything is working, then I don't care how long the movie is. And it's not like this movie is even that long. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes around that. But in that opening bit, I was thinking like any other studio probably would have gotten cold feet. They're thinking about an audience who's like, oh my gosh, get to the other stuff. But I really love that Coogler took the time, to focus on these characters, build them up, show them off, have them interact and build up some more drama. And then when the like more genre stuff happens with the vampires, that's when it impacts the most. At least for me, that's, you build a relationship with the characters as you're watching them just living a normal life in Jim Crow South, and then this otherworldly thing happens and you keep caring, you care even more. And it's even fun too when you have like some characters, just the way they go about revealing this stuff, they have some kind of like cursory knowledge of the mythology of vampires and they just have a ball with it. There's a lot of things that make this movie great. I've just run through a lot, but something I really wanted to highlight, two things. Ludwig Göransson is incredible. You know what I mean? As a composer, the score for this film is phenomenal. Like using like these like instruments or these sounds that are recognizable to like an old time era, but still having like a modern sensibility to it, but still having that work. You know what I mean? Like it gives the movie an energy that was just really infectious, and it helps that when they're at this juke joint and the music's going, that is also incredible. I mentioned the Jamie Lawson song that I thought was really great. Vocally, it's awesome. But then you have Miles Catton who sings, it's like the big oneer scene that people are talking about. And I don't want to give too much away of like what they do with that oneer, but it was incredible. You know what I mean? I really loved the way that they worked in like the importance of the culture of this music, and how it, evolved to this point and how it could continue to. That's kind of what I mean also when it comes to like Göransson embracing this kind of modern approach to using these old-timey sounds, but still having that work and having that infectious, and it's really incredible what they're able to accomplish with the music of this. I'm not saying it turns to like full-blown musical, but the music is a standout, I would say, more so than some like musicals in some instances, you know what I mean? Like they do that great a job with it, and man, infectious every single time. Even when like they give like the villainous vampires like a quick little moment, even that is like fun to listen to and really good. I'm glad that they assembled a cast that could do that as well. But the other thing that I think really stands out about this movie is that you have this movie about vampires, you have this cast of characters assembled, they have their own personal drama coming, it's all really great stuff. But the thing that I, really, really loved in hindsight and thinking about it is how much this movie is kind of about, fighting for your own. You know what I mean? Like, one of the things about Remick, Jack O'Connell, is that he believes in equality, he tells them. And, when you turn into a vampire, there's kind of like this hive mind situation going on. And he's like, we can just all be in this together. But if you think about like the setting that they're in, it's Jim Crow South, 1930s, and they're playing their music with their culture, with their community. But then you have this other guy who's like, no, I believe in equality, but he's like turning them into just like hive mind, I don't want to say like brainless zombies or anything, but just interconnected, losing a sense of themselves just so he can, in a different kind of way of describing it, take their identity and their culture. And I really love how, in this movie where you already have like, fighting vampires, I feel like some people say that, like, that's enough, what I mean? Fighting vampires could be one thing, but they do have a time to like, culturally make this movie a little bit more like significant and important and thought-provoking as far as like, we want to share, our experiences, our culture, and our way of doing things, but we don't want it to be taken away from us, you know what I mean? We don't want it to just be like another thing, like this is important, this is special, that this can only really come from us or from an individual person, like Sammy, seeing how certain things with that character play out. And I really love that, you know what I mean? Just thinking about it, I was like, it's more than just like evil vampire guy, you know what I mean? Like there's a little bit more thematically to that I really love seeing play out. And I really love this movie, in case you couldn't tell. I feel like there's so many things that were working for me, whether it was like the acting or the dialogue, it's the comedy that they're able to insert, the musical score, the cinematography, just everything about this was really working for me. I mean, even the way like they use visual effects in certain ways to enhance the vampire appearance as it goes on. Really great stuff. There's one like abrupt cut to another scene involving like showing off what else Remick can do, where they cut it off quickly before you see any follow through, and I loved it. I loved it. There's so many parts about this movie where I was like leaning forward, eyes going wide, like I was excited by what I was seeing because I was really seeing someone just be really creative. And I think he's even said like, this is something I love these kind of movies. This is something I've always wanted to make. And also it's his most personal story, saying that this is really, a movie that he made to entertain his uncle who passed away a couple of years ago. But this was a movie that he thinks he would really love. And there's a lot of like personal love for like blues music incorporated into this. And Look, man, I love an artist given free reign, you know, to make something special, and especially in this way, you know. It's that thing also of like something that I love. You know, you're watching a movie that could just keep going as a regular drama, but you know they spent enough time with it, and then they bring in the genre stuff. It reminds me of like key thing like The World's End. You know, that's one of my favorite movies ever. You spend so much time with that, and it could in another world. You know, Edgar Wright writes a movie where it's just strictly a comedy, but they incorporate this other stuff that enhances the material, and I feel like that's exactly what's happening here. The only thing I could say as far as like an issue for this is I'm not too big on the way it opened, just as far as an opening narration that's kind of designed to be like a fireside tale kind of thing. And at first I was kind of like, okay, but then they also show a scene that happens later, and it doesn't spoil everything that happens, but at least a key thing it does kind of spoil. And the thing that they open with the narration and that they just cut back to anyways and kind of replay, so it's kind of like, I think you could just cut that and just jump right into the actual movie, like the story where it actually began. But I mean, that's a very small thing in the grand scheme of things, because what Ryan Coogler and company were able to accomplish here is just so worth it. It's so fantastic. I'm so happy that it had a really great opening. I'm hoping that word of mouth continues to spread. I hope a lot of people are talking like me, in the sense that like they're sharing their enthusiasm for it, because I can't imagine walking out of this and not feeling as enthusiastic, you know what I mean? It was really inspiring. I'm gonna give Sinners an A. Make sure to stick around for the mid-credits, because that, I would say, the way they've edited that, that's like the actual end of the movie. There are quite a few people that, even though they were doing that thing where they were cutting back to a scene during the credits, quite a few people left as soon as Written and Directed by Ryan Coogler came up, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna miss something, and they don't even know it. And then it happens, and I realized the full extent of what they were doing, and I was like, this is like the actual end of the movie. Holy shit, they're missing something. There's 2 post-credit scenes. I would say stick around for both, but at the very least, stick around for the mid-credit scene. That's the actual end of the movie. Be respectful, and why wouldn't you want to be respectful for a movie that has so much heart on its sleeves, that has so much creativity to pass on, to so much love and enthusiasm to share. I really enjoyed the hell out of this. But if you've seen Sinners, leave your thoughts in the comments below, what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.